The air inside the Tokyo Dome was thick with anticipation. Cameras flashed, fans shouted, and social media buzzed with one name: Steven Seagal. For decades, he'd been the unstoppable force of martial arts cinema, the man who disarmed gunmen with a flick of the wrist and moved with the precision of a panther. But now, at 68, many believed his time had long passed. Tonight, he was stepping into an underground exhibition fight against a much younger MMA champion, a man half his age, faster, stronger, and eager to make a statement. As Seagal entered the ring, dressed in his traditional black Aikido gi, the crowd gave a mixed reaction. Some cheered out of respect for the legend. Others jeered, mocking his age and faded fame. His opponent, a cocky fighter named Rico Vega, paced around him like a predator. When the bell rang, Vega charged forward, throwing a flurry of punches. Seagal tried to deflect, but his movement seemed sluggish, his timing off. A right hook caught him on the jaw, then a kick to the ribs. The crowd roared. The once invincible Seagal stumbled backward. Commentators laughed under their breath. One muttered, "Looks like the old man's finally done." Cameras zoomed in on his expression. Not anger, not fear, just quiet concentration. He sat in his corner after the first round, chest heaving, a small trickle of blood at the corner of his lip. His student handed him a towel, whispering, "Sensei, maybe it's time." But Seagal didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the floor, breathing slow, steady, and like a storm brewing. The bell rang again for the next round. Vega smirked, taunting him. "Welcome to the real world, Grandpa." The crowd laughed. Flashbulbs popped, and that's when something shifted. The calm in Seagal's gaze hardened into focus. Everyone thought it was over. Everyone thought Steven Seagal was finished. But in the next round, he did something no one expected. The bell echoed through the dome like a cold warning. Steven Seagal rose from his corner, rolling his shoulders, his black gi drenched with sweat. Across the ring, Rico Vega bounced on his heels, grinning, taunting, dripping with arrogance. "Still standing, huh?" Vega sneered. "Let's see how long that lasts." The crowd was split, half booing Seagal, half shouting for him to give up. The air pulsed with the kind of bloodlust that only comes when people think they're about to watch a legend fall. Seagal's student and longtime friend, Kenji, leaned close through the ropes. "Sensei, you don't need to prove anything. These people don't remember who you are," but Seagal didn't answer. His breathing slowed, long, deep, deliberate. The noise faded into silence in his mind. He wasn't thinking about the crowd or the cameras or even Vega. He was remembering something older, something deeper, a memory, a dojo in Osaka. His teacher, Master Osawa, standing barefoot on polished wood floors. "You cannot fight chaos with chaos," the old man had said. "You must be the calm in the storm. Power is not found in anger. It's found in stillness." The bell rang. The second round began. Vega rushed in again, fast and reckless, his youth exploding in a blur of motion. A spinning back kick grazed Seagal's ribs. A jab clipped his shoulder. But this time the older man didn't flinch. He was watching carefully now, reading the rhythm, the tension, the arrogance in every strike. "Come on, old man," Vega yelled. "Is that all you've got?" Seagal's eyes followed the fighter's feet. One step too heavy on the right, he thought. Impatience. That's where he breaks. From the front row, reporters leaned forward, whispering, "He's too slow. He's finished. Maybe this'll be his retirement fight." Kenji clenched his fists in the corner. He'd seen that look before, the quiet before Seagal struck. Then, as Vega lunged again, Seagal made his first real move, a simple parry, barely visible, redirecting the punch off its line. Vega stumbled slightly, caught off guard. The audience gasped. It wasn't much, just a flicker of the old Seagal. But it was enough to make everyone lean forward. Vega circled, glaring. "You think that little trick's gonna save you?" Seagal said nothing. His eyes were half closed, his breathing even slower now. In that moment, something had changed. A subtle shift of energy that only true martial artists could feel. Seagal wasn't fighting anymore. He was flowing. Vega threw another jab. Seagal deflected it with the lightest touch, barely moving his body. The younger fighter frowned, confused. He threw a cross. Again, Seagal turned it aside. Then another. Each strike met air or got redirected by the gentlest twist of the wrist. Whispers rippled through the audience. "Wait, what's happening? Is he actually reading him? Look at that control." Kenji smiled in the corner, whispering, "He's back." Vega, frustrated, started swinging harder, wild, emotional. Seagal's movements became even smaller, smoother, effortless. Every block, every pivot looked almost lazy. Until you noticed Vega missing by inches, camera, flashes exploded as the crowd realized they weren't watching a washed-up actor anymore. They were watching a master rediscover his rhythm. A calm washed over Seagal's face. The kind of serenity that comes when instinct and discipline merge. He was no longer proving anything. He was just being what he'd always been, a martial artist. And yet Vega still pressed forward. He couldn't accept it. He wanted humiliation, dominance, a knockout. He didn't realize he was walking straight into a trap set by experience. The round ended with Seagal stepping back, untouched in the final 30 seconds. Vega glared at him, sweat pouring down, disbelief spreading across his face. The bell rang. The crowd was on its feet now, no longer mocking, but murmuring in confusion. What did we just see?
He's adapting?
Maybe the legend's still alive after all. Seagal walked back to his corner, slow and deliberate. Kenji handed him water, smiling for the first time that night. That's the man I remember, he said softly. Seagal gave a single nod. It's never about strength, he said. It's about presence. The camera zoomed in on his face, calm, unbothered, unshaken. The man everyone thought was finished was now breathing like he was just getting started. Have you ever been underestimated and then proved everyone wrong? Comment your story below and tell us which country and city you're watching from. We love seeing where our audience is tuning in from around the world. The sound of the bell struck like a gunshot. Rico Vega burst out of his corner again, fueled by pride and embarrassment. The younger fighter had expected this to be an easy win, a public humiliation of an aging legend. Instead, he'd ended the last round swinging at air while Seagal moved like a shadow. Now Vega was angry. And anger, as every martial artist knows, clouds everything. He circled fast, snapping low kicks toward Seagal's thighs. Seagal didn't block. He stepped just out of range, eyes locked on Vega's center. Every movement of his body seemed too slow to matter, yet every step landed in the exact spot it needed to be. Come on, Vega barked, fists raised. Fight me! The crowd chanted his name, hungry for blood. But Seagal didn't respond. His face was unreadable, calm, almost meditative. His hands floated near his chest, open, soft. His breathing was deep and even, like he wasn't even tired. Then Vega lunged with a wild right cross. Seagal's body barely shifted. He caught the punch midair, redirecting it in a circular motion, a perfect Aikido deflection. Vega spun off balance, his own momentum throwing him forward. The crowd gasped as Seagal stepped to the side, placing a palm lightly on Vega's back and guiding him to the floor. It wasn't a brutal slam. It wasn't flashy, but it was humiliating. The young fighter popped up, face red, teeth clenched. Lucky shot, he yelled, charging again. This time Seagal didn't move backward. He stepped into the attack, parried the first punch, then with a tiny pivot sent Vega stumbling sideways again. The arena erupted. Commentators scrambled for words. Wait, did you see that movement? That's classic Aikido. He's using the guy's power against him. Seagal's every motion was a lesson in control. The economy of energy, the mastery of balance. Vega kept attacking harder and faster, and Seagal seemed to move less and less. Within a minute, Vega's punches slowed. His confidence cracked. He was breathing heavily now, while Seagal's chest barely rose and fell. Kenji shouted from the corner, "Beautiful, Sensei. Stay centered!" Seagal's eyes never left Vega. "Patience," he whispered, not to his student, but to himself. Vega tried a desperate spinning kick. Seagal sidestepped, caught the leg under his arm, and gently twisted. Vega hit the mat again, landing flat on his back. The arena exploded in disbelief. For the first time, Seagal turned to the crowd. His eyes scanned the stands, thousands of people who'd come expecting to see him fall. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just gave a subtle bow, an acknowledgement that this moment wasn't about revenge, but discipline. Vega stood up again, furious. "You think this is a movie?" he shouted. Seagal said nothing. His silence was more intimidating than any insult. The two circled each other. The crowd was now completely silent, every movement, every breath amplified. Even the commentators had stopped talking. Then, as Vega charged one final time, Seagal stepped forward, turned his hip, and performed a lightning-fast Ariminage. the classic Aikido entering throw. Vega's body flipped midair before crashing to the mat. The impact shook the ring. Cameras flashed like lightning. The referee rushed in, checking on Vega, who lay dazed, staring at the lights above him. Seagal stepped back, calm as ever, hands at his sides. The crowd erupted into chaos, half cheering, half in stunned silence. He bowed once more to his opponent, showing respect. Then, walking to his corner, he sat quietly, eyes closed. Kenji placed a hand on his shoulder. "You just reminded the world who you are." Seagal opened his eyes, speaking softly. "It was never about showing them. It was about remembering it myself." The arena roared again. Every camera in the building focused on the man in black, his stoic face lit by the flashing lights. The legend they'd laughed at had just written his own redemption, not through rage or revenge, but through grace and mastery. Rico Vega finally stood, his pride broken but his spirit humbled. He looked across the ring at Seagal, then bowed deeply, an unspoken acknowledgement that what he'd just faced wasn't an old man. It was wisdom in motion. Seagal nodded back, saying only one word: respect. If you were in Steven Seagal's place, doubted, mocked, and cornered, would you keep fighting or walk away? Type your answer in the comments below. And while you're here, tell us your country and city. We love seeing where our audience is watching from. The arena had changed. Moments ago, the air was thick with mockery and laughter. Now silence ruled, the kind that comes when disbelief is too heavy for words. Cameras zoomed in on Steven Seagal, sitting motionless in his corner, his eyes half closed, hands resting on his knees like a monk meditating in the middle of war. Across the ring, Rico Vega sat slumped on his stool, a towel draped over his shoulders. Sweat poured down his temples as his coach barked instructions. "You had him, Rico. He's old. You're letting him mess with your head." But Vega wasn't listening. For the first time, he wasn't sure. His punches had landed on air. His kicks had been deflected like water splashing against stone. The man he mocked as slow and outdated was suddenly unpredictable, untouchable. The bell rang. Round 3, Seagal rose slowly, unhurried. His steps were measured, deliberate. The crowd leaned forward, sensing something monumental about to unfold. Vega came out aggressive again, throwing a storm of punches, his gloves cutting through the air. But Seagal wasn't there. He was moving in a rhythm invisible to the crowd, one that came from decades of muscle memory and stillness. Sidestep, redirect, pivot, redirect again. Every time Vega attacked, Seagal's body seemed to melt away from the impact. His arms moved in flowing arcs, guiding Vega's energy past him and turning it into openings. Commentators gasped. "Look at that control. That's not speed, that's timing." The crowd began to sense it too. The booing stopped. The jeering faded. In its place came awe. Rico Vega grew desperate. His punches turned wild. His breathing ragged. Each miss drained him faster. Then, Seagal struck. A lightning-fast movement, barely visible to the naked eye. His right hand shot out, striking Vega's wrist just as a punch came forward, redirecting it while his left hand slid behind the opponent's elbow. A twist, a turn, and Vega's own force carried him down to the mat again. The sound of the impact echoed like thunder. The referee stepped in, but Vega waved him off, furious. "No, I'm not done." He stood, jaw clenched, eyes burning. He charged again. Seagal waited, calm, steady, then, at the last second, stepped aside, letting Vega's energy overextend. Another parry, another circular motion, and once again Vega hit the canvas. This time the crowd erupted. "Seagal! Seagal! Seagal!" The chant started small but grew into a wave. People were on their feet, phones held high, recording what was turning into a masterclass in composure. For the first time that night, Seagal smiled. Not arrogance, peace, the kind of smile that said, "I am home." In that moment, his aura changed completely. Gone was the aging actor, the man people joked about online. In his place stood the martial artist, the student who had spent years mastering the invisible line between power and stillness. Vega, panting, wiped the blood from his lip. "What are you?" he hissed. Seagal's reply was barely audible. "Someone who never stopped learning." Another cheer swept through the crowd. Vega threw one last punch, a desperate swing meant to reclaim his pride. But Seagal caught it mid-motion. twisted and gently guided him into an arm lock, forcing him to the ground without pain, without anger. The referee jumped in. That's it. That's it. It's over. Vega froze, realizing he couldn't move. His hand tapped the mat once. Submission. And just like that, and the match was done. The crowd exploded into applause, cheers and disbelief. Reporters shouted, flashes blinding the ring. How did he do that? He barely moved. That was unreal. Seagal released Vega immediately and helped him to his feet, bowing deeply, showing respect not to the man but to the moment. Vega, breathless and humbled, returned the bow. Then Seagal turned to the audience and lifted his hand, gesturing for silence. The noise slowly died down. His voice, calm and deep, carried through the speakers. True strength is not about how hard you can hit. It's about how well you can control yourself when the world hits you. The arena went quiet again, but this time it wasn't silence of doubt. It was reverence. In that instant, Steven Seagal wasn't just a fighter or a forgotten actor. He was a teacher. What did you feel in this moment? Respect, surprise, or pure goosebumps? Drop your reaction below. And don't forget to tell us your country and city. We love hearing where our global audience is watching from. The crowd was still buzzing when the referee raised Steven Seagal's hand. Flashlights flickered like stars across the arena. Fans chanted his name with renewed pride, not as a movie star, but as a true martial artist who had just reminded the world why his name once meant discipline, mastery, and calm power. Rico Vega stood beside him, still stunned, his chest rising and falling as he tried to process what had just happened. A few minutes ago, he had been sure victory was his. He was younger, faster, more athletic, but none of that mattered now. Seagal hadn't beaten him with strength. He had beaten him with understanding. When the crowd quieted, Seagal stepped toward Rico. He extended his hand. You fought with heart, he said softly. That is what makes a warrior. But never mistake rage for strength. One burns out, the other endures. Rico hesitated for a moment, then took his hand. Their handshake drew another roar from the audience, the sight of respect replacing rivalry. From the front row, an old Japanese master stood and bowed deeply to Seagal, eyes shining with pride. He had trained with Seagal decades ago, in the quiet dojos of Osaka, back when few believed an outsider could understand the essence of Aikido. Tonight he saw that same humility and stillness return. But Seagal wasn't done. He took the microphone from the announcer. The camera zoomed in. Millions watched live streams across the world, from Manila to Los Angeles, from Tokyo to Dubai. As Seagal stood in the center of the ring, his voice carrying over the noise. You all came to see a fight, he began, his tone calm yet commanding. But what you really saw was a reminder. He paused, letting the silence stretch. In this world, we're taught that youth means power, that muscles mean control, that arrogance means confidence. But that's not the truth. The real power is in knowing yourself. It's in patience. It's in discipline. And it's in respect, even for those who try to bring you down. The audience was spellbound. Even Vega's coaches, who had mocked Seagal earlier, now nodded silently. The fighter who'd been laughed at for being past his prime had just turned the entire event into a lesson, one that transcended fighting. In the VIP section, a group of martial arts students stood and bowed in unison. Some had grown up watching Seagal's movies, copying his techniques in front of mirrors, dreaming of mastering that same stillness. Seeing him like this, an older, slower, yet somehow greater, brought tears to their eyes. The camera panned to Vega. He lifted his glove in respect toward Seagal, acknowledging what the world already knew, that he had just shared the ring with a legend. And then, out of nowhere, the arena lights dimmed slightly. A giant screen above the ring began replaying the moment Seagal had flipped Vega to the ground, in slow motion. The crowd gasped again. The fluidity, the timing, the effortless precision. It was art, not violence. Every movement seemed choreographed by years of humility and discipline. Seagal watched the replay for a moment, then looked back at Vega. Do you see? He asked gently. You gave me your strength. I only redirected it. That is life. When you stop fighting the world and start understanding its rhythm, you stop losing. The words hit hard, not just for Vega, but for everyone watching. The crowd erupted in applause again, not as fans cheering a fight, but as people honoring a truth they rarely heard. In that moment, Seagal had shifted from competitor to philosopher. From a fighter defending his name to a man redefining what legacy means. Vega bowed one last time, whispering, "Thank you, Sensei." Seagal placed a hand on his shoulder and replied, "Now go teach others what you've learned. That's how warriors grow." Then, as he turned to leave the ring, Seagal did something no one expected. He knelt for a brief second and pressed his palm to the mat. A gesture of gratitude and to his teachers, his students, and the martial path that had shaped him. The audience rose to their feet. The ovation was thunderous, echoing off every corner of the arena. People who had once laughed at him now had tears in their eyes. He had come to prove nothing, yet proved everything. As Seagal walked down the ramp toward the exit, flashes continued, commentators whispered in disbelief, and fans around the world flooded social media with one phrase that started trending within minutes: respect for the master. Have you ever seen someone earn respect through calm strength instead of anger? Tell us what you learned from this moment, and drop your country and city below so we can shout you out in the next video. By the next morning, the world had changed. Clips of Steven Seagal's fight flooded every corner of the internet. Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok feeds, Twitter threads, news headlines. Everywhere you looked, there was that moment. The calm parry, the effortless throw, the humble bow at the end. One clip, captioned, "The master never left. He was just waiting for the noise to fade," hit 50 million views overnight. Across social media, comments poured in from every country imaginable. Respect from the Philippines, watching from Brazil. This gave me chills. From Pakistan, humility always wins. Here in New York, we're talking about this man again. It wasn't just fans of martial arts. It was everyone. Old school action movie lovers, spiritual teachers, gym coaches, even psychologists. They all shared the same sentiment. Seagal didn't just win a fight. He restored dignity to what real strength means. Meanwhile, Seagal himself stayed silent. No interviews, no press conferences, no dramatic statements. He spent the morning training alone in a small Tokyo dojo, the same one he had practiced in decades ago as a young man. The wooden floors creaked under his bare feet. Shafts of morning light filtered through the paper windows, painting calm stripes across the walls. Each move he made was deliberate, slow, focused. There was no crowd here, no noise, no cameras, just rhythm and breath. When a student entered quietly, bowing deeply, Seagal didn't stop. He finished his movement, then turned and smiled. "Sensei," the young man said breathlessly, "you're everywhere right now. Everyone's talking about you. They're calling it the return of the master." Seagal chuckled softly. "Let them talk," he said. "The world needs stories. But remember, one fight doesn't make a man wise. What matters is what we learn from it." He placed a hand on the student's shoulder. "And what I learned is simple. Never fight to prove something. Fight only to express truth." Across the ocean in Los Angeles, talk shows were replaying the footage. Analysts discussed how his Aikido techniques defied the logic of modern MMA. Others focused on his composure, the way he stayed centered under humiliation and still bowed with grace at the end. One anchor said it best. "In a world where people chase attention, Steven Seagal reminded us that silence can still command the loudest respect." Fans began tagging him in tributes. Artists drew digital portraits of him mid-stance. Captions reading "Calm over chaos." A trending hashtag emerged, "The stillness within." Even Rico Vega, the man he defeated, posted publicly, "I entered that ring to break a legend. I left it having met a teacher. Thank you, Sensei." That message alone racked up 2 million likes within hours. Later that evening, Seagal agreed to a brief, quiet interview for a Japanese television channel. No glamour, no stage lights, just him in a dimly lit dojo sitting cross-legged in front of the camera. The reporter asked, "How does it feel to be back in the spotlight after all these years?" Seagal's response was calm, almost poetic. "Spotlight? I never left the light. The light just moved somewhere else." He paused. "When you grow older, the world forgets you because it's busy chasing what's new. But wisdom doesn't fade. It just waits. Sometimes it takes one moment, one act of stillness to remind people that the real fight isn't with others. It's within yourself." The interviewer, visibly moved, bowed deeply. That small clip became another viral moment, translated into dozens of languages. shared by millions who found peace in his words. Days later, headlines around the world read, "Seagal's silence speaks louder than knockouts. From mockery to mastery, the redemption of Steven Seagal." The internet finds respect again, and his name is Steven Seagal. Even Hollywood, which had long turned away from him, began reaching out again. Producers wanted to meet. Studios sent offers. Documentaries were pitched about his philosophy and comeback. But Seagal wasn't interested. He told his assistant, "If I return, it won't be for fame. It'll be to teach what this fight really meant." That single quote was shared by motivational pages worldwide. Students wrote essays about it. Fighters posted it in gyms. It became a mantra for people facing personal battles. Don't fight to prove 'em, fight to express truth. If this moment gave you chills, type respect in the comments. Tell us your country and city, and what you learned from Steven Seagal's comeback. We might feature your comment in the next video. Weeks passed since the legendary fight, but the echoes of that night still rippled across the world. What began as a single exhibition match had transformed into a worldwide movement. Across continents, people were talking not about Steven Seagal the actor, but Steven Seagal the teacher. His calm defiance, his humility, and his wisdom had reignited something forgotten in a noisy world. The power of quiet strength. Clips from his match continued to trend, now layered with motivational music and quotes from his post-fight interview. One viral edit simply said, "True power is calm. True mastery is humility." It hit 100 million views in less than a month. Dojos from Japan to Canada reported record enrollments. Martial arts students said they were inspired by Seagal's ability to stay composed under humiliation and still treat his opponent with respect. Even parents began sharing his story with their children, as a lesson in how to face adversity with grace. Across social media, thousands of people shared their personal reflections. "I watched this when I was angry at life, and it reminded me to breathe." From India, "This isn't just about fighting, it's about peace." Here in London, "I'm teaching my son what true respect means." What had started as a fight had become a philosophy. Meanwhile, Seagal remained where it all began, in his quiet Tokyo dojo. No glitz, no media, no entourage. Just a few dedicated students training in silence under his watchful eye. When one of them asked, "Sensei, how does it feel to have the world calling your name again?" Seagal smiled faintly. "The world calls many names," he said. "But what matters is whether you can still hear your own." He paused, adjusting the student's stance. "Power fades. Fame fades. But peace stays if you protect it." The student bowed deeply, eyes glistening with understanding. Soon, an international foundation reached out, not for a fight or a film, but to invite Seagal to deliver a speech on self-discipline and emotional mastery. The event was broadcast globally, with millions tuning in live. When Seagal walked onto the stage, dressed in a simple black robe, the audience rose in applause. He waited for the noise to settle, then spoke. "I was mocked, tested, and doubted. But none of that truly mattered. Because the moment I stopped needing to prove who I was, I became who I am." He looked around the silent hall. Strength without compassion is chaos. Fame without purpose is emptiness. But when you live with respect and for others and for yourself, and you never lose. The crowd erupted. Tears, applause, and standing ovations filled the air. Cameras captured the moment, the once forgotten action star standing as a symbol of discipline, peace, and resilience. That speech became the closing scene in a viral short film titled "The Stillness Within," watched over 300 million times in its first week. In the final frame, as music swelled, Seagal's voice narrated, "A warrior's greatest victory is not over others, but over the storm inside." The screen faded to black, and just like that, the story of Steven Seagal, once dismissed, once forgotten, became something far greater than a comeback. It became a timeless reminder that respect, calm, and truth are stronger than rage, doubt, or noise. He hadn't returned to reclaim fame. He had returned to remind the world of balance. If you believe real strength is found in peace, type respect in the comments below. Tell us your country and city. And subscribe for more inspiring true stories of courage, humility, and redemption.